Welcome back to another episode of Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers. I am your host Kieran, and joining me via video link is Jax.
Hey, how are we?
Very good. Today we are spoiling John and the Hole. And as we do now, we open each episode with our very quick, succinct 1-minute thoughts each, because we have a tendency to ramble for hours on end. Please deliver your thoughts on John and the Hole, starting now.
So, John and the metaphorical and literal hole is an incredibly well-shot film. It is expertly shot. It's beautiful to look at. It's an incredible film that I think is exactly what the director wanted to make. It's exactly what I feel like the director wanted to make, and unfortunately, I think it is potentially incredibly boring, a bit weird, a really hard stretch to anybody that's like, oh, this film's more of an artistic, metaphorical examination of the human psyche and human mind. This film is very hard to define because I love the concept and idea of this film, but I found myself incredibly frustrated at times, and I think that this film is very, very good at what it wants to do, but I'm not necessarily sure I like what it did.
Perfect. Great job.
1, 2, 3, go!
I love John and the Hole. I think it is beautiful to look at. I love the square aspect ratio, which is a very claustrophobic, tight feeling hole-like way to view the film, which is which is no mistake by the filmmaker. I am not familiar with this filmmaker's work, but I'm excited for whatever they're going to do next. I thought the performances, the cinematography, the allegorical messaging, the metaphors, all of these things really kind of connected and spoke to me. And it may not be the most enjoyable experience, but I think it has a lot to say, and I'm looking forward to digging in very deep and talking about what I think those things are.
Should we get right into what I think is the crux, the emotional part of this film, and I would argue maybe the non-emotional part of this film, is that the blurring lines of the metaphorical and the literal notion of this film. I started looking at a couple of people's thoughts online about this film and all this and that about the film, and then I went, no, Jax, no. What is spoiler talk if not having an opinion and then being like, what does bloody Kieran think of this bloody film? Because I really want you to just dive deep, hit me hard with why this film works, because I was so close to loving this film, but then so many moments of this film, I was just like, fuck, I hate this little prick John. John, shut the fuck up. Don't put your family in the hole. Get yourself in that hole and die in that hole. Because goddamn, I hated him.
Well, Jax,
but I also understood. But go.
John is in a hole.
Oh my god. Oh my god. A metaphorical or literal hole. His soul is in a hole.
Sure. Look,
but hit me with it. I'm so keen to hear your thoughts. Really, I am. More so than a lot of films we've done. I'm really keen.
I haven't read anything. I haven't read any reviews. I haven't looked at any discussion about this movie. I just finished it, and it was recommended to me by my father, and I messaged him right after and had a bit of a chat with him about it. And I think, my first impression when it was over was, I felt like this is a story about the emptiness of comfort and the deep desire for freedom we cling to as children, that becomes completely overwhelming when we actually have to confront it in adolescence and adulthood. And like you said, aptly, the literal and metaphorical whole. That's absolutely true of this movie. I think we often toss those closest to us in our own metaphorical pits, as you would say, as we spiral into our own heads. Even though we know we can reach out to them whenever we want and find some kind of solace, often it feels shallow and empty, even when they outstretch a hand to us. And I think that's what we really kind of see at the outset of the film, is that, this is actually not a kid who is suffering or struggling. He's involved in extracurricular activities. He's very financially well off. His family love him, and they all connect with him in different ways. And it's not perfect. It's not it's a pretty picture perfect family, but it's not all perfect. You can feel kind of a sense of longing, or maybe not fitting in, or him being an outsider, or him wanting more, I think ultimately this film boils down to the idea of security versus freedom and what those mean. And essentially, that's what every political discussion boils down to. That might be what every discussion humanity has ever had has boiled down to, is that tightrope, or that rope that we're pulling back and forth, the left and the right, or the authoritarian and the libertarian, or however you want to phrase it, is this like eternal battle of like security and freedom. And I think it's making the case, in a sense, that having everything, having the comfort and luxury of all of these things, might make you want to push back against that even more. The part of the film that kind of baffled me when I'd finished was the meta story with the daughter and the mother. But what I think that is a commentary on one of two things. Either it's a commentary on the female perspective from the same line, or it's a commentary on the disparity of the wealthy and the not wealthy, the poverty-stricken.
I hadn't thought about that, actually.
So
go on with that.
Well, the female part, I think, is emphasized by the fact that it's a daughter and a mother. Yeah. And the mother makes reference to her mother, who was left alone, abandoned at a young age, had to have a child. She mentions this. And then, abruptly at a point in the film says, oh, and I'm leaving now too. Your grandmother had it way worse than you did. And almost this idea of like, perhaps how society or how young boys and young girls can be treated in women have the uncomfortable reality of the fact that, there's an inherent imbalance in our biology which ripples out into society. And it's exemplified in this movie, but I'm not sure that's just what it's about, the female perspective. But it's no mistake that the mother references the grandmother, references leaving her on her own, and the fact that, even when the daughter mentions something about the house, the mother says, oh, we don't own this house, we rent, you've got, this is all you've got left, so you better make do with it. Juxtaposed with the boy who has everything, probably have gone on with this charade for a ridiculous amount of time before being...
horrible amount of time, yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought that was very interesting that you have this one. And at the end of the film, John is welcomed back in, There might be kind of that underlying sense of tension at the dinner table, and that very, very deliberate long last shot that we slowly zoom out of.
Yeah, the whole short film in one shot, like a 9-minute shot, yeah.
Yeah, it's deeply kind of uncomfortable, and you really want to... I think the audience at that point really wants John to get a walloping,
Oh, I mean, Keiran, can I just interject for 2 seconds and say, I wanted John to die. I wanted I wanted Dexter Moxley to beat his ass. I wanted him to beat his son so hard. I wanted him to get him on that table, strap him up with Glad wrap, and be like, you deserve this, you fucking cunt. And just cut his throat. Like, I was so mad at John. So mad at him throughout this movie. But sorry, go on. Just as you were saying that, I'm like, oh yeah, that's how I felt. But I felt like I was like a pedestrian viewer analysing this on kind of a surface level. And I knew I understood there was like other things going on and what the film was trying to say. And no, this film is very much like another film we did recently. But this director does exactly what he wanted to do. Exactly the film he wanted to make, he made. To precision, precise, and excellence. But I think it really frustrated me to my core on kind of a basic film going viewing experience where I just really wanted, you know, the villain of the movie to be punched in the face by my Spider-Man character or whatever, you know? I wanted the heroes to punch the villain, and
that's intentional.
We do not get that. We do not get that.
I think it's intentional. I think
100%.
I don't know what the film you're referring to is, but I'll assume it's Uncut Gems.
Oh, amazing. No, it was amazing. Yes.
What were you thinking of?
No, that's a better example. Let's go with that, Kieran. Let's go with that. That's what I meant.
Well, Uncut Gems rewards you in a very different way, but there is that underlying sense of frustration that permeates throughout Uncut Gems that ultimately I think the filmmakers more effectively fulfill the audience's I don't know, whether they're subverting your expectation or whether they're delivering the guttural punch. It's very, very effective and very, very kind of clear cut. Like you get smacked in the face with the point of Uncut Gems at the end, and there's no denying what the movie's about. Whereas John in the Hole, doesn't necessarily hold your hand as tightly. And I think,
not at all.
even boiling like right down to the last shot, like the girl wandering into the foresty space, which I'm assuming is the location where the hole was buried.
I think 100% it is, yeah, but in a very non-conventional way where it makes you really question. Look, let's maybe get to the little girl after. I think that's almost a second discussion.
Well, I think she's there more to be a contrast. And the part I couldn't quite figure out about the girl was that she asked the mother to tell her the story about John in the hole.
Okay, sorry. I said let's get to that. Let's just get to that right now if we can. We're talking about it. Let's get to that spoiler shit. It's like the little girl part of this story. It's like it's a story about John, little John boy, and he's like hanging with his family, being real disconnected. The film's being shot very disconnectedly, big long shot wides and stuff, holding out, very distanced, and all this kind of stuff. And then suddenly it's like he sees a hole, and he's like, Mama, Papa, what's this hole? And they're like, it's some hole, who cares? Shut up, John. And then it's like smash cut to this family and this mother and daughter, and she's like, tell me the story of John and the hole. And she's like, John and the hole, the bedtime story? And then it smash cuts to the title, 30 fucking minutes into the fucking movie, John and the hole. And I'm like, oh my God, John and the what? I screamed. I was like, what? Kieran, I screamed, what? I screamed it out alone in my bedroom at like 10 in the morning, just screaming, what? Like I don't think I've ever been so frustrated, shocked, and enjoying. Like part of me was really enjoying it, but I was so like kind of confused and almost aggravated by this like subplot that is just so
elusive,
so out there, so incredible phrasing, elusive. That is exactly what it feels like. But the only part of me that doesn't want to say that this is bad in any way, in fact, it's kind of phenomenal and spectacular, is that it's so precise and it's so intentional that it makes you go, wait, what? Like every time it cut to it, I'm like, what am I watching? Is John real? Is this the real story? Is this story about a woman and her daughter? And she's like, daughter, I'm going to fucking leave you and you're 13 years old. I'm getting out of here and I need to brace you for this world. So I'm going to tell you this absolute horror story, this Jack and the Beanstalk story, but it's John in the hole. John and his family in the hole.
The opposite.
John, the worst boy in the world.
I didn't even think of the Jack and the Beanstalk, but there's something there maybe.
I think it's 100%.
Inverted. Yeah.
It's the fairy tale. I use Jack and the Beanstalk as an example.
I got it.
Go.
It's the fairy tale version of this girl's life in a way.
Yes. That was what I was going to say. Yes.
She's poverty stricken and a single mother. That there's reference made to the fact that the father has disappeared or left. That she too is being abandoned. There's also an interesting correlation between their ages. We get told both the little girl and the little boy's age. Well, that's the thing. The mum thinks she's 13, but the girl exclaims, "I'm only 12." Yeah. So I think that so maybe what it's saying is the lucky ones can kind of toss their loved ones aside and return unscathed, while the unlucky have to fend for themselves, like despite being completely innocent. You know, like that girl is undeniably a completely innocent part of the equation that's going on. She has done nothing wrong. She has tossed nobody away. She has mistreated no one and is left to fend for herself, despite being 12, despite not even being a teenager. It's you know, we're going from childhood into adolescence.
Coming of age stuff, yeah.
Exactly. It is. I mean, the coming of age tale maybe for, you know, the lucky and the unlucky, and how the unlucky, I mean, to someone in her circumstances, a fairy tale would be the ability to toss your family in a hole, live as a free child with all your money.
Eat all the McDonald's you want.
Yeah.
Talk to the neighbors, your mother's neighbor, and be like, "Do you want to maybe have sex?" But he doesn't say it like that because he's so.
That's
young
where he says he's 13 too. Yeah. So we deliberately get told that both their ages. It can't be a mistake, you know. There's so little dialogue in this film that everything that gets said feels like it has such import. You know? So
Oh, sorry, can I just say, like, the one bit that made me go, like, is at a point, I'm like, what the hell? Like, this goddamn John boy, he's, like, chucking his family in the hole, and there's no reason or rhyme, and then suddenly, when they're in the hole, we get all these, we cut away a bunch to them in the hole, and the mum is like, oh, once I told John what it was like to be he's like, he asked me that weird question that John always asked. You know how he always asks weird questions? He asked, like, what's it like to be an adult? And she's like, well, I don't know. And it was a classic case of, like, the adult being like, oh, shit, but my child's getting close to adulthood, asking me these weird questions, and I don't know how to respond. So she just said, oh, adults are just children with more responsibility. And then she's like, I don't think he liked that. And on closer examination, I love it because it sums up so much of what he's going through. But I feel like as I watch the film, I'm like, oh, fuck John. And being like, oh, I don't like the idea of being an adult, so I'm just going to do the most awful thing I can. So much of this film, I think, works for me metaphorically. But the literal sense of this movie, of him throwing them in the hole and tormenting them the way he does, by walking up to the hole, looking down at them, not speaking, feeding them with chicken nuggets and stuff, bro. I found him so intolerable as a human being. The subplot where he just drowns his friend and his friend drowns him, and he's like, I just want to, like, feel what it's like to maybe experience the beyond the grave stuff. And like, metaphorically and on paper, and I feel like as we discuss it every time, because obviously you're a big fan, obviously the more you talk about it, I think I'm going to be more on your side. But I think when I watched it, I just found him so frustrating. Like, he infuriated me to a point of, like, fuck you, man. Like, appreciate what you got. Like, stop being such a little sook about this all. Like, I felt like I don't know, like, I found him really frustrating. But I think maybe that is the point a little bit. Like, yeah. But I don't know. Before I get too angry and sad about this film, I've got to say, just right off the bat, this film is so expertly shot and so phenomenally filmed. The cinematography is so precise and so clean and so like sometimes, like, he pretends that he loves tennis. Like, he's playing the tennis video game and he's got the tennis training and stuff. But instead of having, like, okay, we've got this tennis setup, we've got him and the coach, we'll have 7 setups for this scene. It's like, no, we'll have one shot of him and the racket, and we'll just hold on it. He's just hitting the ball, and we've got him hitting the ball on the racket, and just one shot, and we'll hold. And then we'll have a shot of all the balls in the I don't know what you call it, like the pouch where the balls are all kept before they get shot off at him with the machine, and we'll just hold on it. And we'll hold on it for as long as you think is appropriate, and then hold for another minute. And the same, there's so many shots where it's like he's looking at something, or we're looking at him doing something, and we just hold. And we'll just be one step away from where you should maybe film it. And there's this weird disconnect and this weird out of body what's the word, out of body, I guess is the word I'm looking for, like just disconnected out of body looking at stuff where I'm like, oh, I'm really getting the sense of where John's mind is at. But even though the filmmaking and all the stylistic, the lack of music, the lack of emotion and feeling from the character and the actor and the cinematography, but
the apathy, he's got such a sense of apathy, maybe never conveyed so well in a motion picture. It's
for sure, it's
and it
great acting,
links back into that like central theme of like maybe comfort breeds apathy. You know, maybe there's something to that. I really just don't know what the end of the film is trying to say. Maybe it's not explicitly taking a side or making a statement as much as it's just presenting the reality of the world and asking us, the audience, to feel that sense of inequality and frustration, and those who have... sorry?
Oh, no, sorry. I was just going to say, what specifically about the ending do you mean? Do you mean the ending of John's story, or do you mean when we cut back to the little girl subplot ending?
Yeah, her wandering alone. Like, what...
I really want to hear what you have to say, because I found that we cut to her twice, and the first time I just went, what? What? Like, and then the second time I went, what? What is this film? What is this film? Oh, okay. Oh my God. Is this the real film? Is John's whole world not real? Is he actually a Jack and the Beanstalk fairy tale, Snow White fairy tale kind of story that's kind of embracing metaphorically and literally the idea of a child's hole in their soul, not understanding how they're going to come into this world as an adult, breaking out of that child thing where you can just, as a child, like any question, any fear, any doubt, you go to your mother, or you go to your father, or you go to any of these people, you go to a teacher, or you go to anybody that understands. But then John is like presented with an opportunity where he throws that away in a hole, metaphorically or physically or whatever the hell. And then he starts to deal with it where he's like, I can do whatever I want. Like all bloody people who move out, but like, I'll eat all the cheeseburgers I want. And then he's like, I'll play all the video games I want. And then he's like, oh, my belly. Oh, no, you can't do that all the time. Your belly doesn't agree. And so he starts not doing that. And then there gets to that point where he speaks with his mum's best friend. And he's like, stay with me. Stay with me. I need that connection of a human, or maybe I need that motherly connection, or maybe I need that sexual woman connection. It's never fully explicit, but it kind of teeters on the edge of all three of those feelings of connection. And what he needs is not, he doesn't go, hey babe, let's get down and fuck or shit. And he's not like, I need a mother. I'm lost without my mother. He's
very dancing around
subtle.
it, yeah.
It's very subtle and it's very clever. I actually think that's one of my favorite scenes, where I kind of felt on edge with like, I wasn't sure if he's going to turn... Actually, one thing I want to say, before I forget, is this film teeters on the edge of being like, is this guy just a psychopath? And I mean, I hated him as a person, but just because he put people in a hole. But he didn't ever get to that point where he's like, there's another movie that came out. Yeah, exactly. There's another movie that's like, there's a movie that's essentially, what if Superman, but evil, Brightburn. And it's just like, it falls into that line of just like evil straight away. Like as soon as he crosses the line, he's just killing people, and it's like serial killer shit and all that kind of stuff. Whereas this film is like way more subtle and metaphorical. I'm going to say that word too many times, but it really is. It's a great metaphor movie.
The evil is the apathy. It's that disconnected sense that he has. It's like, that's the truly like horrifying. It's the... And I mean, I think that that's one of the horrifying parts about most of the real world and most of life, is that it's not really actually a lot of the time the, mustache twirling evil people you have to worry about. It's just getting steamrolled over by, and then nobody really caring, and the cultural or societal apathy that goes along with certain things. Like, that, you know, there's a sense that, like, you know, people who get welfare, people who are downtrodden are lazy, and you know, we've got to chase these people for any amount of money that they take off of us. And, you know, we saw this, you know, to reference something specific, like an Australian political scandal with robo-debt. Our current Prime Minister, Scott Morrison, the biggest dickhead in the nation.
Biggest cunt in the world, one might say.
Yeah, prior to being Prime Minister, spearheaded a debt collecting strategy that was, I think, all automated and targeted people who shouldn't be targeted, because there's this, like, liberal nationals, I say quote unquote conservative, because they're not conservative. I know what conservative values are. I've read conservative. I understand the thoughts about the free market. These people are not that. They just say they are to win votes. But they targeted people who, they targeted the most downtrodden and the people that they knew that there's, like, a sense of cultural apathy against welfare cheats, so that they could get away with doing anything. And this resulted in people committing suicide. This resulted in people getting bills from Centrelink for, you know, tens of thousands of dollars that they didn't actually have to pay back, because this whole system was built kind of on a foundation of apathy and an idea that the welfare cheats are the ones who are rorting the system. But if you want to take a look at who's rorting the system, Jax, go and have a look at all of the money that our federal government paid out to gigantic corporations. They're not going to ask for a fucking dollar back from any of those. And all those giant companies did was take that money and then pour it back into their own, into purchasing their own shares, inflating the value of their company artificially with taxpayer money, and fucking over the little guy with our money. And I don't know that a movie has ever exemplified such a real world kind of ideal that, you know, it's this girl wandering alone in the wilderness are these people that were culturally left behind, that had nowhere left to go. When the government's going after you for money and they're telling you got to pay it back, there's no more, you can't bankruptcy your way out of it. You can't get away from it. It's cruel. And it's not just, you know, there are people who take welfare and abuse it and they're not doing the right thing. But if you add all that up, it's a tiny, tiny, tiny fraction to the amount that we subsidize giant industries and billionaires and mining and banking and real estate and all of these things in our country that are absolutely fucked and that put more money into the pockets of the apathetic. So for me, I think fundamentally this film just really rings true, because at the end of the day, people like John do get to just go back home and sit with their family, and the rest of us can just wander out in the wilderness on our own, you know.
That is such an intense and powerful message that you grabbed from it, and honestly, I wish while watching it, I kind of got that. I think I was too wrapped up in the literal sense of the movie of John doing the thing he did that I kind of got wrapped up with, like, Michael C. Hall, Dexter, where he's covering himself with mud and, like, the daughter being like, "Shut up, parents. John did this to us. John's a piece of shit. He's evil. Why'd you do this, John?" And, like, then later being like, "John, it's so cool. Like, oh, that bloody, what do you cook? That risotto you cooked. It was so delicious." And that time that they teeter on trying to be nice to him. And, you know, I think I did get lost in the literal sense of the movie, that when I finished, I went, this movie is half literal, half like metaphorical. And I think a lot of the metaphorical and the themes and the ideas of the movie kind of swayed over my brain, and like I wasn't able to kind of grab onto them and hold them and feel them as a movie, which this movie, honestly, I think this is the best. This could be one of the best films I've ever seen.
I think you're wrong, Jax. No, because I think you did get it. I think you got it. I think you viscerally understood emotionally what you were meant to feel.
So I'm meant to hate John more than anybody in the world.
Maybe. Well, that's a determination you need to decide for yourself. Like I would argue that it's easy to hate him. Yeah, it's very,
for sure.
and the movie makes an easy job of it, and that is maybe the easy way out. And we want him to get belted, and
I wanted, dude. Halfway through this movie, I remember being like, I am a little like. There's a point where John stops talking to them. Oh, he doesn't stop. He's not talking to them, and there's like that middle arc bit, and I just remember going like, oh, I don't know if I love this anymore. It's Shotwell, it's this and that, blah 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 blah, all the good things, but I am now waiting for them to get out of that hole, chuck him in the hole, light the hole on fire with gasoline, and he lights on fire and explodes. And I want to see that happen. And I'm like, I shouldn't want to see a child die this badly. What's this movie doing to my brain? It actually made me so angry at one point. Not to say I felt that about the little girl. So if the parallel is meant to be, I hate him because he gets away with it, but I love her because she doesn't, and I feel sympathy towards her, and I feel sad for her, and I'm on her side, and I hate her mum. So if that is kind of the parallel of the stories, but her having a story called John in the Hole really made me go for a lot of the film, wait, is this even real? And then, sorry, not to sideline your point anyway, but before I forget, there's a moment where we get a tracking shot away from the family, and he's eating dinner, and it's the same scene as we get earlier where no one's talking at dinner. There's no fun family dynamic or even forced dialogue of like, what did you do at school today, honey? And blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. But it's just a silent dinner thing where they pass the garlic bread over and all that kind of stuff. But I did go back and check, and they're not wearing the same clothes, so it isn't implied in any way that it's all a dream inside his brain of what he might do to break out of this childhood and become an adult early, which I actually thought a lot of the film might be hinting towards due to certain lines and stuff that happened earlier.
I think it's illustrating the point that there's a freedom from circumstance for people who have more than the people.
God,
That's
amazing,
the people who don't. Yeah, there's an inherent.
Oh, this film.
And that's what it's exaggerating to the nth degree, is that there is no consequence for the lucky ones.
For the rich and privileged and lucky, yeah. That is, fuck man, that's kind of scary to think about. I think I was, oh, geez, yeah. I knew you were going to say some stuff that was going to fuck my brain up, but that's...
And I think you got that, honestly. Yeah. Maybe even if you couldn't articulate it, I think you got it. I think through your, like the visceral, like emotions that you're exhibiting, you know, like I think we felt the same way the whole way through.
Yeah, I think just clarifying, like I feel like it's, you know, when you listen or you hear something and you're like, it's on the tip of my tongue, you know, you can look at your tongue like, it's on the tip of it, but I can't do it. And then someone's like, it's this. And you're like, everything in my brain has been like the mist has been ripped away, and I can see the word in front of me now.
You come to a point.
Scary.
You come to a point with a lot of movies, or I mean, I say you, the broader you know, you in general. We come to movies, and there's a point at which in the movie where you either decide to trust the filmmaker or you don't. And that crucial point can teeter you one way or the other to your overall enjoyment of the picture. And I just thought that there was so much on display right up front in what was being delivered that I just trusted this filmmaker, that I just thought, you know, this is gonna weave together. Like, I might have to think, I might have to rack my brain. I've had to talk to my dad and you to really even figure a lot of this stuff out. And I'm not even sure I have it all. You know, it's something I really would like to revisit in the future and see if I get a different angle on it. Or I would like to just maybe briefly touch on the kind of the darkly comic humor that runs through it, especially the kind of recurring, I don't want to say gag, but kind of is, of him drugging people. He starts by you know, trying it out on himself, and he's sitting there kind of, you know, doped out at dinner one night, and his mum, I think, asks, "Are you all right?" And that's him just experimenting with the drug. And then every time, you know, after he puts his family in the hole, there's a couple of instances throughout the rest of the movie where he offers people a drink, and it just filled me with dread every time.
So scary. Yeah, the mum's friend freaked me out, man. I'm like, don't take it!
And then the guy who jumps in the pool to save him, he offers him a drink too. And every time he does it, I'm like, what's his plan? What's he gonna do? It's just the kind of date rapey, fucked nature of that thing is and that also paralleled with a very real world. I don't even really want to bring this up and drag the whole podcast down, but you know that Brock Turner situation, this horrible human being in the United States. Well, you know, people will hear that name and they'll either know exactly what I'm talking about or they won't. And if you don't, maybe
they're Googling on their phones and they already hate us for having to Google it. And
but there's a lot of maybe not intentional, but there's a lot of similarity here about, you know, a privileged person who did something horrible and really was free from the consequence of the courts, but ultimately not the consequence of the minds of people. I mean, this boy's life has been ruined thoroughly via the internet, and there is a sense of justice that was done culturally, if not legally.
But not legally. Oh, shit. Yeah, that's... You saying that, I don't know who that word is, but as soon as you said that, I'm like, yeah, there's that. Maybe that is part of it. Maybe... Is that a new thing? Yeah,
and it was huge. So maybe it
I don't look at...
Don't. And anyone listening or watching, if you don't know what it is, live in happy ignorance. And
I'm disgusted. And this film, honestly, it's enough of that. Like, because, I mean, like, if we get back to the film with that kind of disgusting stuff, him offering... He's like, Mr. Gardner Man, what are you doing? And he's got that kind of innocent child vibe of like, oh, you're weeding. What does that mean? But he's got that creepy deadpan thing where, I mean, I was just off with John from the start, man. I didn't like him from the start. He freaked me out. He was making me feel uncomfortable. It kind of disgusted me from the start. I'm like, I don't like him. I hate how much this film is doing well with its cinematography and acting. It's making me feel uncomfortable because I like watching the movie, but I hate the main protagonist, and it's, you know, making me feel uncomfortable. But I'm like enjoying it. Like there's a shot that's slowly like bird's eye viewing spiraling on the woods, and I'm like, oh my god, this is euphorically intense. And then it goes, and I'm like, oh my god, it's a drone! It's a shot of a drone! Like, oh, this film, that's so good. And then he's like, there's a hole. What's with the hole? I'm like, oh my god, John and the hole isn't up. It's a John in a literal hole. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, it's John in a metaphorical and a literal hole. This film is fucked, cunt. Like, And it just, John from the get-go, though, as soon as he's hitting that tennis ball, I hated him. And I never stopped hating him. When he's talking to that gardener, and he's like, oh, you like that drink of lemonade? Do you want another drink of lemonade? I'm like, get out of here! Stop gardening! Stop weeding! The garden's fine! Oh no, he's gonna die! And then that wide shot, that disconnected, awful feeling this film does, where it's just like, I'm gonna film the shot from just like 5 steps away from where it feels like it should be shot. So you like feel like someone's watching every shot. And sorry, every time I say something like disgusting and awful, I'm like, the filmmaking is perfect. This is one of the best made films I don't think I enjoyed watching I've ever seen. Honestly, it's like, it reminds me of like a Clockwork Orange, or I can't even think of another film. Like,
have you seen A Ghost Story?
No! Oh my god! I listened to a podcast and they started talking about it for like 10 seconds, and they were so into it, I stopped listening.
It's
because
wonderful.
It sounded so good, yeah. And I was such a scaredy boy now. I just didn't want to watch the movie, but it's on my list of movies to watch.
It's not a horror thriller. Don't worry about it.
It's a horror podcast, so I had to presume. Sorry. Is it? Would I love it though? I mean, would I enjoy watching it the way I enjoyed watching this?
Yeah, I think, well, what it does is it's also in a square aspect ratio.
Classic 4:3,
Yeah, and it's playing with different elements, but it's very allegorical, metaphorical in some ways. But it also really does, like some of these really amazing kind of smaller independent films, like it's pushing your patience intentionally to achieve a narrative or dramatic sense of something. It's trying to exhibit something through the way it presents time. And I think when you watch movies like this, you need to you just need to go into it going, all right, I'm going to trust this filmmaker. I'm going to trust what they're doing. If you're on board for the general style and tone and everything,
yeah,
and you will be, because it's got that same, like, the cinematography captivates you straight away, right. But then there are elements that begin to grate and wane, yeah.
Are you saying it's not scary then?
No,
I feel like maybe I'm thinking of a different film, because I think so. That it's very scary.
It's called A Ghost Story.
Yeah, and not very, very scary.
No, it stars Casey Affleck and I can't remember the female lead, but she's been in heaps of stuff.
All right. Sorry, let's not get bogged down in another movie that we're going to clearly have to do a podcast.
Well, I just wanted to just say, like, the square...
Oh, no, say more if you want. Sorry.
The square aspect ratio is something that I feel like, of late, it's really been kind of hammered home that you don't have to be widescreen to be cinematic. I think the Snyder Cut proved that. Yeah. I think A Ghost Story proves that. I think John and the Hole proves that. I think you can have a beautiful, touching, visceral experience, and it doesn't have to fill any particular frame. You can use a frame as a creative choice, and achieve a cinematic sense, and it really, there's no correlation to aspect ratio and cinematic quality.
Do you think that maybe I actually watched a bit of Snyder Cut again recently, and quite enjoyed it, but I don't think any part of me went, you know what? That 4x3 shit, that's making it. I think for this film and for another film that comes to mind, and they're the only two that come to mind, I haven't seen any others that do it in that kind of modern context or whatever, if you will. But this and Lighthouse have both done it in a way, especially this film, I think, literally just because it's like metaphorical and literal, John and the Hole boy. It's like when you make it 4x3, you're kind of boxing us in. Like, it's like going, we're here, and now we're here. I did it. I suddenly realized I did like a visual thing in my hands. You couldn't see that. But it's like, we're squishing us in, and it's kind of pushing the visual feeling of the movie into a box, into a hole. Like, and it's kind of, and I don't even think that doing this, say 5 years after 4x3 became not a thing, it would have that same feeling. But now that films are always, like 98% of the time, always kind of that wide, long kind of feeling, bigger feeling on a screen, when you kind of crop it into that tighter feeling, the whole film just has a vibe now. And it's giving you that tighter, boxed-in feeling. And for this film, that's like the whole fucking point. Like, it's like he's literally in his soul trapped in a hole. The family's trapped in a hole. His brain's trapped in a hole. I, as the audience fucking member, I'm trapped in a hole. I'm looking at a goddamn hole of the screen. Like, there's black parts around the screen. And Lighthouse was the last film that I watched where I went, oh my God, 4x3 can be like a cinematic thing. It's not just like a gimmicky kind of thing. I mean,
Wes Anderson does it too, to great effect in the Grand Budapest Hotel.
Shit, does he?
Most of that film is 4x3.
Yeah. I love that film, but I don't remember that being an aspect of it. I'm sure he does it expertly as well. He's a master. But especially that film, I think that's his best one. Let's not get into that. But I'll get bogged down into that too much. But I think that choice of just being cut it off, cut some of it out, trap us into this little area, and just make the area tighter, smaller. And it gives you that weird sense of claustrophobia, especially when we cut to Dexter and his family down in the hole.
And they're looking up.
Oh my God, some of those shots when they're looking up, it actually reminded me a couple of times that they look right up and it looks right down. I'm like, I've lost when they're looking in and out of the hatch.
Yeah.
Of just that beautiful cinematography of just up and down, and that just intense feeling of I'm down here, you're up there, and that difference of feeling of space, of area. And then they have a few moments where they're like, we can't get out of this hole. And I'm like, you didn't even need to try, Dexter and your family. You didn't need to try, because the cinematography already fucking told me you can't get out of this goddamn hole. You're fucked, mate. Oh my God, it's freaking me out even thinking about it. Like the idea of this film is so traumatic to me that I think until I sat here talking with you and tried to think about it afterwards, I can kind of escape and go, oh yeah, this is the metaphorical ideas of it. But the literal horror of one of your family throwing you in that hole. Like when they all wake up and they're like, where's John? Where's John? And then that minute realization like 2 minutes later where they're like, John put us in this hole. It's John's fault. I'm like, it's such a leap to realize that one of you has done this to yourselves because it's so horrifying. It's such a powerful and scary moment. It's a really great movie. It's a great movie. I didn't really love watching it, but it's a great movie.
Hey, Jax, how many cushions do you have in the house? What a not terrifying question that turns out to be the most terrifying question.
Not enough is the answer.
Yeah, because even Michael C. Hall spends most of the movie with a leg injury because he's obviously just like, toss that wheelbarrow in and is just praying they'll land on the cushions. And the two girls probably did, but Michael C. Hall landed on his leg.
Yeah, the idea as well that, I don't know, like wait, what am I trying to say? Sorry. The feeling of this movie where they are like trapped in it, and there's a point where we do get a couple of moments of kind of almost, I'm saying absurdist comedy is probably the wrong phrasing, but like we do get kind of moments of brevity and light just because of the horror of them being stuck, where they just like there's one bit where I keep saying Dexter. What's the actor's name?
Michael C. Hall.
Michael C. Hall is like trying to finger his wife at one point, and he's like, shut up, wife. The daughter's not asleep. And you're like, I'm pretty sure I just saw a shot of the daughter and she's definitely not asleep. And then I'm like, but did I? I can't even remember because this movie's so fucked. But then he's like, shut up. You're like, just shh. We can do this. She's like, I don't know. I think she's still awake. And I'm like, oh, this is so absurd and full on and intense. And the fact they've gotten here, and that's like right at the point before it kind of turns. And actually, sorry, that brings me to another point. We have those little moments, but then it does spiral around to the end where you have that kind of funny moment where they've been in the hole for so long that he's like, well, fuck it, let's just have sex. Who cares if our daughter's awake? But then the ladder gets lowered and we get them escaping, and then they escape and they see that his friend isn't there anymore, so he's just drowning himself by himself. They save him, which kind of seems absurd to me because I was like still wanting Michael C. Hall to drown his son, and then he saves his son from drowning, and I'm like, I am so conflicted. But we do have the moment where he kind of just decides to stop being the worst cunt in the world. He's like, I, the cuntiest kid in the world, will stop being the worst boy, and I will just let them go because movie needs to end. So how do you feel about that? And
does he
twist me so I...
Okay,
sorry.
I'll probably try and... Well,
convince me as to why that's amazing.
Less so amazing, more so perhaps it's not that he's doing the right thing because he's had an incredible character arc over the course of the film, but it's more an admitting and acceptance of defeat of his freedom and an acceptance of the fact that he's completely fucked without his family and the life that he should have appreciated. But then the fact that he jumps straight in the pool and attempts to drown himself is like, I suppose...
It feels conflicted amongst
Well, it's illustrating the fact that he doesn't want to have to face any consequence for it, maybe. That's the first thing that he does is that, and he doesn't even have the wherewithal to go through with it. But, I don't really think the film makes the point that he understands now the importance of family and that he has some kind of miraculous like heartwarming breakthrough. It's more so just the fact that he's things are crumbling around him slowly, and this is all going to come to an end one way or another, and it's accepting defeat, if anything. Because I don't know imagine if everything just went the way he thought it was going to go and life ended up being wonderful. Like, what a horrific thought that is.
I don't want that as the ending. I understand. Yeah, see, that's why I feel like this film to me was so incredibly well made, but just kind of, there was just this underlining, like there's all these things happening, like dig, 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 all across the film, and they're just right underneath it. I just found myself frustrated. But I guess that's the point. But
I did too,
still can't help being frustrated. And I remember thinking, once they've saved him from drowning, and then there's that shot at dinner table, and I'm looking at it being like, I don't think this is meant to imply, even though the shot is very similar, to this being all a dream or an idea or a thought from John. And then I'm like, oh, what the hell about the little girl and the metaphor mum? Or maybe that's the real plot, subplot, main plot, side plot thingy. Cut back to it. And then it cut back to it, and she's walking through the woods, and I'm like, oh my god, the movie's all gonna make sense. This is like that post-credit scene in a Marvel movie where you're sitting there being like, oh my god, and that feeling of, you know, my body's swelling and shaking, and I'm getting excited, and then it just cut. And I was so angry, and I felt so empty, and I'm like, oh, I feel like this is the point, but I don't think it's working. But maybe this is the point. It's not meant to work. And I just really felt like this film knew exactly what it's doing from second one to second end. The first second to the last second. But I still did feel frustrated, even if it's meant to make me feel frustrated. It made me feel frustrated in a way where I was like, I don't even know if I could recommend this to a lot of people, because it just made me so annoyed in aspects where I'm like, it's just say we weren't doing this for the pod, I would definitely recommend this to you. But a lot of my friends, I think, there's no way they would find this engaging or interesting, because so much of it that I found annoying, I think would permeate above all the things that really work and really sell and make this film like a real movie kind of thing, you know?
Yeah. No, I agree. Pretty small group of people I'd recommend this to. But, and yeah, even of that group, I reckon 50% would come back and be like, why? Why'd you do this to me?
And funnily enough, like, not to say Rotten Tomatoes has a big say on what you should think or feel, but it is kind of an interesting aggregate sometimes. It's got 58 last time I checked.
No. That's
pretty savage, man. You know?
I'm under the firm belief that the best films being made today get around 50 or 60%. Maybe unfair to say the best, because sometimes the critics do get it right en masse and agree, but for the most part, the aggregators are there to say, what is the least offensive film? That'll get 98%, you know?
For sure.
The least divisive, the most fulfilling and heartwarming at times. And then every now and then you'll get something that, like, all of it comes together and it's like, it's incredible on every level. Everyone sees that it's like Mad Max Fury Road. Everyone agreed. Yeah. We were all critic, fan, everyone on the same page, you know? You know, like a movie like Darren Aronofsky's Mother, which is equally as kind of confounding and allegorical in its messaging and not direct, but it's playing with like kind of biblical stuff. But that got about 60% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I got quite a lot out of that movie. I thought it was
really? Oh, yeah. So that 60% is probably 60% too much. I thought that was the worst.
I thought it was beautiful. I thought it was wonderfully shot. I thought it was like playing with like biblical archetypes in a new way. I thought it was, and I wasn't really directly sure of everything it was trying to say, but you know, I think I trusted the filmmaker after seeing like Black Swan, you know, which I also loved.
Oh yeah, great movie.
Yeah. So you know, I felt like I was in good hands, and then you know, it has a really big, impactful final shot. That I think kind of circles back around to the start of the film, and it's almost, in some ways, these movies are perhaps constructed in a way to be divisive, in a way to elicit an emotional and thought-provoking response. And there's something about that genre of filmmaking that I'm really, really attracted to, that I like trying to like puzzle things out, and I like, you know, having all my own thoughts about it and then going and hearing someone just completely the other way and you know, a completely different take. And I just hope the filmmaker never says what it's about, because I hate when you just go and read the director and like a big interview
and a big
they've done.
tweet is like, actually, this movie's about this, and you're all wrong. You know?
Yeah, it's like, don't do
Or
that.
you're all right. It's this. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if
You made the movie. That's what it's about.
Yeah, you put
we
it all
grab
in
what
the
we grab
movie.
from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I do think though that it would be bizarre if this guy made a tweet or whatever.
Oh, yeah, I don't
because
think...
this film feels like when I finished it, I didn't go, I don't get it, and I feel like this director has no idea what he's doing. I felt like this guy knows. This guy knows exactly what he's fucking doing, and I just feel like maybe I was so swept up in the literal sense of the movie that the metaphorical and metaphysical and all the other ideas and themes about it that he is toying with and playing with and doing and saying, it just kind of went by the wayside because the idea of a child who kind of didn't, a child doing to a family who didn't really truly deserve it in any way that we saw in the film, being thrown in a hole, was just so horrible to me, and it made me so angry and so sick inside, just on a core level of just, I don't want this to happen to anybody. It just, I couldn't really pass that at any point in the film, and I just constantly wanted him to get his comeuppance. But so much of the film was kind of toying with the idea that it wasn't even necessarily about that fully, and it was more about, metaphor kind of stuff to do with the whole, which I understand more thinking about later, but I still couldn't get past how much I wanted them to punch that fucking guy's face in at the end.
So the Rotten Tomatoes kind of aggregate description reads, John and the Hole's enticingly unique premise and disquieting atmosphere are often at odds with a meandering story that prevents this thriller from fulfilling its creepy potential. I think that is a fundamental misunderstanding of what this film is. I don't think this film is a thriller. I think this film is allegorical. I think it has components of, the thriller genre.
It doesn't try to be a thriller at any point in this movie. And
no,
if
but
you
I
were
think
thinking as a thriller, it would be kind of boring and slow, yeah.
Yeah, and I think maybe if you're going in, it's like, oh, I watched the trailer and I saw the premise, and the premise is a kid puts his family in a fucking hole.
How are they going to get out of the hole?
Yeah, and I want to see really where it's like, oh, maybe perhaps, this is a result of mismarketing from I don't know, I didn't watch a trailer, I didn't know anything about this film going in, so I got a very pure experience, which I think with this type of stuff is the way to go.
For sure, 100%, yeah.
Yeah, films that are trying different things still get sold as a particular package. A movie we both watched that came out in 2020 that I thought was masterfully and excellently riffing on the horror genre was a film called The Empty Man, which got absolutely savaged by critics because it was marketed as basically, the premise in the first and second act, which fundamentally the film is not about. Yeah. So marketing it as a kind of as a straightforward horror genre picture that's about going on a bridge and blowing in a bottle and spooky things will happen in 3 days. I mean, the movie is that, but it's so much more than that, and but it's impossible to market it as what it is. So you see the marketing material, it comes across as one thing, and then you watch the picture and you're like, oh, it's definitely not that, what they were selling it as. And I think it offers quite a lot, but perhaps just that disconnect from expectation versus reality throws a lot of people. But I think I've pretty comprehensively covered all my thoughts on this one. I don't know. Do you have anything else that's kind of jumping out? You mentioned the score, and there's no music in it, is there? I can't remember any.
I don't want to throw on record forever on a podcast, but I had the feeling like there was no music.
Yeah,
I felt like there was no music. You know what? It doesn't matter if there was or not. I had the feeling as I watched it when I left it, like it had that kind of hole-esque feeling of music where it kind of felt empty and hollow, the way his soul maybe is, and it felt appropriate, the lack of music, and if there is music, it was used subtly enough that it felt appropriate to the movie where I left it, and it gave me that sense that there wasn't any music. And
I would like to apologize to Katerina Barbieri,
God, who's that?
the composer.
Oh, okay. Oh no.
So if you're watching this, Katerina, sorry we didn't notice your music, but
but we
the
noticed
film
what
worked.
you. Yeah. It complemented the film, so what you did worked because I didn't.
I'll pay attention more next time for sure to those elements, but I think missing that, we weren't missing the fundamentals of the film, so that's okay.
The last thing I think I want to say, and I might have said this already, so bloody cut it if I already have, but the child actor who plays John, you're a son of a bitch, but god damned did you not act. Just holy moly, what a performance. What an incredible performance of just horrible stillness, nothingness, devoid of feeling, but then faking it at times when he's playing a video game, But really, I could feel like I could see behind it at dinner table scenes and moments where the director wanted me to see behind him faking that he was okay. But I really, oh my God, as soon as the movie started, I'm like, dude, John's not okay. John's not good, bro. Dexter, you need to fix John. Oh no, he drugs you.
Don't blame a drone, no.
Yeah. Just, I don't know. I thought he did an exceptional performance.
Yeah, he really carried
giving almost
the movie.
nothing, Oh, yeah. 100%. But also, he kind of, it's like that weird, like, kind of weird, sorry, give me a second. It's that weird, half where he's almost giving a one-note performance, but because that one note is the point, like he doesn't really change so much throughout it in ways, and like the way he's performing doesn't like go through this explicit fundamental change as a character, but I think that's kind of the point.
But I do
from it,
and I do feel like there is and maybe I misread it, but almost a growing sense of desperation and longing, each time he reapproaches the hole and looks down at his family, and even though he never says anything to them, there is, and by that last time you almost just believe from the look and the latter, like all of it kind of fits together perfectly that we got. And like I said, it's not necessarily an emotional resonant arc as much as it's an acceptance of defeat, but that is still an emotion that he sold to me at least.
No, sorry, that's way better than what I said. What I said felt more kind of what I said is wrong. What you said is great because it's not that he didn't change; it's that it wasn't kind of your generic film. Hey, I'm a happy-go-lucky guy. Oh, now I'm dark and gritty, or vice versa, or any of that.
Yeah,
kind
like
of
here's the bit where
film.
It shifts. Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the bit where he meets with his character that's like, actually, son, what you've been really looking for. And he's like, oh my God, my whole world is changing and shifting. And then you're like, and here we go into the final act. It subtly chipped away at him, and via no dialogue almost the whole time. And the only real sense of change is that he finally comes to the hole the one time before he brings down the ladder. He speaks to them. And it's that subtle work of less dialogue is more dialogue. In this film. Yeah. This film is amazing. It just didn't. I don't know. It's
it can be
frustrating,
both.
Interesting watch. Yeah.
Yeah, both frustrating and rich at the same time.
Yes. That's good phrasing. Yeah. Frustrating but very rich, cinematic, breathtakingly filmed. The filmmaking is so exceptionally framed and staged, and the acting is exceptional. I would recommend this. It's just, who do I recommend this to? That's gonna not stop 20 minutes in and go, fucking, what the hell, Jax? You're usually giving me great films. It's like, I don't know. It's an interesting, hard, challenging watch. But man, John and the metaphorical and literal hole, it's a cinematic. It's a film. It's a film.
It's certainly a film that came
Technically, it's a film that was made by the man. Yeah. Well, sorry, a person. I don't know who made it. It's a film.
All right, shall we leave it there?
100%. I'm good.
Thank you, everybody, for watching or listening. If you're watching on YouTube, please give the video a like and subscribe. And if you're listening, please also go over to YouTube and subscribe.
Like it everywhere, please.
Yeah, we're also on TikTok. The little segment we do at the opening of the episode, we cut into short TikTok videos. So you can find us on Instagram at Spoiler Talk and on TikTok at Spoiler Talk. And you can also follow BlackRock Broadcasting, which is the broadcasting network that Spoiler Talk and Jax's other podcast, Two Brothers, One Pilot, belong to. Are you talking about anything interesting soon, Jax?
I have no idea what we're doing. I think hopefully we're doing Heel soon, which is a new show coming out, but I do not know. I don't think we've decided. Who knows? Maybe something lockdown related. Who knows?
There's always an abundance of new pilots to be watched.
Exactly.
The Two Brothers go through all of them. So definitely go and check out Two Brothers, One Pilot. And yeah, thank you all for watching and or listening. We'll see you next time.
Thank you, Sketches.
Spoiler Talk is produced by KCBN Studios and Space Kraken Media.